Hey everybody, welcome to Dad Talk Today. We are in Rapid City, South Dakota at Freedom Fest 2021, and I'm sitting with former presidential candidate, Miss Jo Jorgensen. Joe, how you doing?
Good. I'm not used to the word former.
Oh.
The race wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. Are we thinking about doing it again?
Oh, we'll see. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yes, ma'am. So, Joe, we are facing a fatherless crisis in the United States. 1 out of every 3 kids are growing up without their father, and I think there's many things that are playing into this. There's been a narrative that these guys are deadbeats and abandoning their kids, and there are some. Okay, there's some of those that are moms too, but we see a family court industry that's a $60 billion industry. That's not coming from guys that aren't trying to be inside of their children's lives. I think there's so many different government incentives that has kind of played into this fatherless crisis, and it doesn't get enough attention. I'm just curious some of your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Charles Murray did not do himself any favors when he wrote The Bell Curve, but before The Bell Curve, he wrote a great book called Losing Ground, and he showed very clearly how basically when you pay fathers to leave, they leave. That the government had for decades set up a system in which families got more money if they weren't together. And why would you want that? And that's part of the problem of having government trying to control every aspect of our lives.
100%. Why would you think they would make incentives that would do such a thing?
Well, I shouldn't say every law. Many laws start with good intentions.
Right.
But they don't have the foresight to look through. And I hate it when they say, unintended consequences. It's like, no, it was very obvious. So, for instance, aid to families with dependent children. Yeah. They said, isn't it sad when a mother with 3 kids loses her husband? How is she ever going to support her kids?
Right.
So the government says, okay, we'll step in, and the federal government, off at a distance, who doesn't know what's going on, will just start handing out checks to women with children. And it started out okay. Not that I approved of it.
I got you. I'm following.
And then it turned into interviews in the 80s with girls in high school, with reporters asking, so you're not using birth control? Aren't you afraid of getting pregnant? And they would say, oh no, I'll just go on AFTC.
Right.
So, and teenage girls were looking at this as an escape, as wow, instead of working a job, I could have a child and then the government will give me money. So but that wasn't the intent. The intent was if you're already married and you lose, and you lose the spouse. And so you just can't run so many things from the federal government. And by the way, and I still think that private is much better. That if you look at getting money from somebody who wants to give money to somebody who needs it, it's much more efficient, much more of the money goes through with less overhead doing it privately. But when the state and local governments were in charge of helping out with charity, they were doing a much better job than the federal government because they were closer to the problem. They could see what needed to be done. Again, let me quickly add, it still needs to be done privately, but
right.
The federal government, the average person should have almost no contact with the federal government unless they belong to the military.
So do you believe a lot of these family issues should be more left up to the states?
Oh, yes, I do.
So, and I agree, we're finding some problems. I've been to 40 states in the last 5 months, going to the capitals, talking to legislators about this. We have had a headache trying to go this route. In Florida, they had shared parenting, that legislation that went through that would equal, mom and dad would be equal unless there's a reason there shouldn't be. Judge still has discretion. In 2016 and 18, it went through the House and the Senate, and the governor vetoed it.
Wow.
And then in Texas, just a couple of months ago, for the people that sat on the committee, 200 parents, close to 200 parents showed up at the Capitol in support of this. 4 of the people that sat on the committee were family law attorneys that were also funded by the bar. It's also the same 4 people that just fled to D.C. to keep from voting on the law that they was trying to get down there in Texas. And it seems like we're trying so hard, and it's common sense legislation. We want to put families back together.
Well, and you make a good point about the lawyers being in charge.
Yes.
Our country was founded supposedly with well, we were supposed to have citizen statesmen going to Congress, going to Washington. You were supposed to live in Montana, live in Arkansas, live in New Jersey, wherever, go to Washington for a few months, pass some laws, and then go home and live under those laws.
Right.
But now we've got professional politicians, many of them lawyers, who don't even have to live under their own laws. And so they don't see the consequences of what they're doing to other people. So we really have a messed up system.
I don't know the actual numbers, but it seems like over half of our politicians are attorneys. Keep hitting these roadblocks on the state level. Where would you suggest us as parents, as activists, would turn to?
Well, unfortunately, for helping you out, I ran for a federal office, and so I'm not well versed in that, so I'm not sure. But I know Marshall Burt is around, who is an elected libertarian to the state house, and there are other libertarians who have looked into those issues and are better versed on that.
Well, we talked to Spike earlier. Spike really was well versed in the Title 4D and some of the other stuff that's going on, but let's hit it from this angle then. I think where we messed up as families, as moms and dads, is when we let the government inside of our home.
Yep,
when we let them inside of our marriages,
Absolutely.
when we let them get involved in our parenting, tell us what we can do. It should have been between man, God, and woman.
Yep.
Now where it's man, God, and government, or man, woman, and government.
Right.
Sorry. But we've got to get the government out, and it seems like the libertarians are all for this. Sometimes we get painted in the conservative circle because a lot of them talk to us. This is exactly what the Libertarian Party aligns with. Is, talk about some of the dangers of letting government get inside of our families, Joe.
Oh, well, just look at education. And the good thing, it breaks my heart when I see these parents who are begging the school board, the city council, please let my kid attend in-person classes. Please don't make my kid wear a mask. Please don't teach CRT in my class. They are begging the school to let them educate their children how they want to. Well, if the government didn't take that money in the form of taxes, there would be more money to put them in the kind of education that they wanted. And a lot of people don't realize this because they look at private school and they say, well, that's expensive. But it's still cheaper than government-run school because you've got so many layers of administration. And wouldn't it be great if we could go back to letting people have the kind of schools they want according to their religion? And something I've pointed out to people, because a lot of people have said, things are so contentious these days. Why is it?
Right.
It wasn't like this 50 years ago. And some people say, well, politicians are crooked. Well, they were crooked in the 1930s and 40s. Congress was known for being very crooked. But what you have right now is, if you want to have prayer in your school, and let's say your neighbor doesn't, you both have to support a candidate, put out yard signs, donate money, get all your friends to vote for your candidate, and then on election day, one of you is going to win and one of you is going to lose. And then the loser's going to have to follow the rules of the winner. Wouldn't it be great if we could all decide on ourselves that if I want to send my kid to a school with prayer, I get to do that. If you want to send your kid to a school without prayer, you get to do that. And, it's getting to the point where, and I'm going to write a blog on this, where it's going to be, okay, when are we all going to have to vote on whether or not we're vegetarians? And people say that's ridiculous. Well, look at where we've gotten in the health industry and the food industry.
I'm with you.
And I don't want to live in a world, which we're starting to live in which we all vote and it's winner take all, and you don't get to live your life how you see fit.
Talk a little bit about our education system. What direction do you think that's going in?
Horribly.
Yeah.
What we need to do first, well, I shouldn't say first of all, but I ran saying that I would eliminate the Department of Education. Education is a local issue. It should be among parents, teachers, and students. And the needs of rural Appalachia, much different than the needs of downtown New York City. We should allow parents to decide how they want to educate their children. And you've got Washington, D.C. with this one-size-fits-all. How can it even fit one-size-fits-all when you've got some people out in the country with much different needs, much different weather, much different demands than people in the middle of the city? You can't have a cookie-cutter one-size-fits-all.
I'm with you. Joe, thank you so much for coming
Sure.
today. Tell everybody where they can keep up with you.
At People for Liberty I am so excited.
That's right.
Yes, I was asked to be on the board of People for Liberty. I'm the president of the board. So thrilled because we had great momentum in the campaign. So we don't want to just let it die down. So we're trying to build the momentum going forward. And they can join us at people4liberty.org.
Really quick, can you give a little plug about what People for Liberty is about?
Oh, we're getting people together with different interests. And let me give you one example. So on Easter, I wished everybody happy Easter. And other holidays as well, but happy Easter. So everybody who liked that was sent an invitation to join Christians for Liberty. We've got Christians for Liberty, Black Voters for Liberty, Veterans for Liberty, Second Amendment, gun owners for liberty. And then they can have their conversation and move it along to where we can grow in numbers and get somewhere.
Awesome. Joe, thank you so much for coming today.
So
it was
to
an
be
honor
here.
to sit down and talk with you.
It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to People for Liberty, guys. Thank you. Hey everybody, Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also super chats, patreon.com/dadtalktoday, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.